everybody. It is Ken. I am at the Circle R Ranch with Vern. Vern, it's a pleasure to have
Ken.
you here.
Great to be here.
Pleasure to have you here. Yes, we have these beautiful signature guitars rolling out. But I want to go back a little further.
Sure.
All right? Because I have some questions from all of my punk rock brethren.
All right.
And everybody wanted me, well, a handful of my friends wanted to know and hear from you how well you know Dr. No, how much time you spent with him,
man.
and how much influence did the Bad Brains have on creating what would be, you know, Vernon Reid's Living Color in the early days.
Yeah. Well, I have to, it goes back to my friend Greg Tate, rest in peace, the great, music journalist and musician and band leader in his own right. And, he's actually from Ohio, but his family moved. He's actually originally from Dayton, and his family moved to D.C. And he was the first person to tell me about the Brains, And that Roar cassette, and it's just like astonishing. And the first time I saw the Brains was oh my goodness, it was either Irving Plaza, I think it might have been, it was either Irving Plaza or CBGB's. And they did a show at the World, which was a short-lived venue. And it was insane.
Yeah.
Insane. I mean, they were loud, they were precise, they were heavy, they were, I'd never seen anyone quite like HR as a front man. It was astonishing. Like, apparently H did track and field, and he was a gymnast. And so they were doing a song, and at the end of the song, he did a standing somersault. It was crazy. It's crazy. Those are some of the shows at the original Ritz on 11th Street, when they moved to where Studio 54, the greatest mosh pit I've ever seen. The greatest mosh pit I've ever seen was when the Ritz was in the 50s. It was Studio 54, and they had a low balcony. The balcony was maybe not that high, maybe 10 feet.
Okay.
And they were hitting it, and then the place was packed, and the first person leapt off the balcony into the pit. And then from that point on, people were running up the stairs and flying off the balcony. And security at that point, they put up their hands. It was unbelievable.
And how much, and not just, with your history, but how much of New York, hardcore, and how many different avenues did music take after those shows happened? Because, I recently read the Beastie Boys book, and they talked about, we went, everything was cool, and then we saw this, and then everything changed.
Oh, yeah.
And they ended up taking it somewhere completely different as musicians, even outside of their hip-hop thing. And then so many bands sort of trace, you hear about the original CBGB's bands all the time, and with good reason. Ramones, Talking Heads, Blondie, all that stuff. But then that hardcore wave came and influenced so many bands going forward. It's almost immeasurable. Like the different scene, if you want to look at the metal guys and SOD and all and everything that went.
The collisions, the various collisions of metal, punk, hardcore. The Cro-Mags. There's like so many Circle Jerks. There was so many of these bands that but the Brains kind of cracked something open. Yeah. They really did. And You know, and in a way, because the Brains were also influenced a bit by fusion, like jazz rock fusion was a part of their influence. You know, there's a bit of Van Halen if you listen real close, buried deep in the Bad Brains. I mean, they were a seminal band. I mean, we did Time's Up. The song Time's Up is a tribute to the Bad Brains, really. Like, I mean, you know, Corey took it into another space by writing these lyrics about the environment, but the whole vibe of that tune, you know, we used to play Sailing On, you know, was a tune that we covered for them. So they had a massive impact on us. You know, at one point we did some tours with them. I mean, they were a very contentious lot, you know, and at one point H was out and this cat Israel was the lead vocalist, but we you know, we spent a lot of time with those guys, and they're like brothers to us, and you know, there was no band, band like them, absolutely. Yeah.
So what else that happened then in that era pulled together? Like, what would you consider other influences of yours? Like, obviously that's one of them, but you guys came out of that with a completely unique thing of your own as well. I mean, the first record was mind-boggling. When it happened,
yeah, well,
it was great.
A lot of it was because in a way it was more of the kind of the post-punk bands. You know, I mean, certainly I became a huge fan of the Talking Heads, you know, and it was kind of after their era in CBGBs. And the club CBGBs in particular was, I mean, the Living Colour wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
I mean, if I think about it, Hilly Crystal at CBGBs, you know, Frank Gallagher at Irving Plaza, you know, we gathered together a local following, and that was really kind of crucial. And then, you know, like just the different bands that came through that we were, like Soul Asylum, we did a lot of things, you know, Royal Crescent Mob, you know, we did a lot of shows with them.
The gentleman who you signed a record for in our shop saw you play with Soul Asylum at the Nectarine Ballroom in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
And talks about it often.
Oh yeah, man.
I mean that, and some other friends of mine from this area too. Like that was their first exposure to you guys.
I remember I would try not to miss a prong show.
Yeah.
You know?
I can see that.
Oh my God, they were, you know, and talk about that confluence of super heavy, super dynamic, you know, just really, 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 all of that made a big impact on us.
So moving forward, the first few Living Colour records, all successful, all the MTV, all the stuff was going on, and then you did Mistaken Identity. Was that the first solo venture? That was, I mean, you know, obviously you have recordings of yourself doing stuff, but that was...
Yeah, that was during our break away from each other, you know. And I was able to work with the great Tia Macero, you know, who was Miles Davis's producer, and Prince Paul, who was De La Soul's producer. So like the three of us collaborated on Mistaken Identity. With also Scotty Hard, who engineered, you know, Greg Lotkin, you know, he worked with, at one point he did some of the early things, and he worked with Santana. So it was like a pretty wild combination of people. You know, Chad Blake, I mean, there's a bit on there called Unborn Embrace, was me playing this Ebo thing, and Chad Blake recorded me. I was doing this recording week at Peter Gabriel, had invited a bunch of musicians, you know, and he had like a kind of a weird cavern, like this, on his property, and Chad Blake was taking musicians down there and recording them. And yeah, so it was very, yeah, that was wild, you know. You know, Lawrence Fishburne does a thing. It's crazy. It's crazy.
And so after that, did you just lose your ability to say no to anyone? Because you've guested on so many amazing records on so many amazing tracks. And when you look at the history of everything that you've been up to for the last 30 years, it was hard to like look at that and pick things to
Well,
talk about.
it
I mean, Black Rock Coalition, obviously,
Oh, sure.
and there's some great. What stands out to you, you know, looking back on it?
Stands out playing on the first Public Enemy record on the song "Sophisticated," and
That's you know what covered that.
wow,
Yeah. We were talking about Mike earlier because Mike watches over us all the time. But yeah, that is such a great track.
yeah,
Killer.
You know, and they actually did a cameo on the song "Funny Vibe" on the first Living Color record, playing on Mariah Carey's first album, which is a whole story because Tommy Mottola and her. Well, we're not going to go into that. So that was a whole thing. You know, recording a track "Stare and Stare" it was a Curtis Mayfield song for MC 900 Foot Jesus. And you know, so they're definitely getting to play with Santana. You know, did a song with him, an instrumental every now and then that got nominated for a Grammy. Worked with James Bud Ulmer on a bunch of blues things. I mean, they're things that just jump out.
Yeah.
And really, really special.
All right, so this is a guitar company after all. And we're big guitar people here, and I'm a big fan.
You're a big guitar person.
I'm a big guitar person, but I've got a few Hamers in my collection. I've got a few lot of things, but I want to talk about it. I want to talk about the guitars of your career. So before Vivid, what were you playing in the like mid '80s? What was the thing that inspired you to?
I was playing. Golly, well, I had this Frankenstrat, which is a guitar that I played when I was playing with Ronald Shannon Jackson and the Decoding Society back in the early '80s, and we played Montreux Jazz Festival in 1983. It's crazy, and Keith Haring was the official artist for that festival, and he actually did an illustration on this Frankenstrat guitar, which is pretty crazy, and it's my most prized single instrument. My first endorsement thing, I mean, I had a Washburn guitar. I did have a Les Paul Gold Top reissue. I had an early Steinberger, you know. In fact, I had one of the first Steinberger guitars. And then Ned, and they used to have like carabiners. They had like these eye things, these eyelet things, and the straps had carabiners to hook them into the body. And Ned reached out to me and said, "Could I have that guitar back? Because I don't have any of the early prototypes." And he made one of the first Steinbergers that had a kind of guitar-shaped body, and I traded him one of the original prototypes for that. My first endorsement for real was ESP, and the legendary USA office. It was bunch of wild and woolly characters running around at that time.
And then the Hamers.
And then the Hamers. Yep. And the Hamer guitars, which Joel Danzig.
Do you still have the Compass guitar?
Yes. You mean you talking about the E = MC squared? Yeah, with the pop-up swatch. Yeah. Watching it. Yeah.
So rad.
Yeah.
And then, not surprisingly, from embracing
also,
the Steinberger,
you
did a Parker thing too,
I want to
right?
mention Paul Skelton. Paul Skelton, who worked for ESP, rest in peace. Paul Skelton was amazing. He had this thing. They would send guitars from Japan, and he had this thing that he would do. he had the one chord quality control. He would take a guitar out of the box and he would strum a chord, one chord, and he would go, okay, I can work with this. Strum, POS, send it back. Strum. Would take a box and just take it out and strum like a chord. And yeah, he set up the cult of personality guitar. And that was, wow, 1986, yeah.
Yeah, and then they reissued that 20 years later, right?
They reissued that in 2016.
Okay.
They made only 86 guitars.
I see those coming around a little bit.
Yeah, and then of course, my period, as you said, the period with Paul Danzig, and Frank Untermeyer, and Terry Atkins, great luthier, and that was a special period. All those collaborations with Joe Danzig, I love those guitars. And then, the company itself changed. They kind of went their separate ways, and then I had a time with Parker, and that was a special time. And
very innovative and very
great,
strange instruments.
Yeah,
and
yeah, really beautiful instruments. And then Ken Parker split, and then U.S. Music Corp had it, and then they had a great rep named Jody Dankberg. He was wonderful, but then it got real corporate. He got downsized, and then it was one of these things. And it was a trend where they were putting more of these brands, like you had single people having to deal with all of these brands, and it was kind of a drag. And then finally, I did a thing with PRS, and I know Paul for years, and then we finally got around. I want to give shout out to my friend Jason McNamara, who was a dealer of guitars, and he sold a lot of private stock guitars in Tokyo, and he helped me get reacquainted with Paul, and then we did a limited edition signature model, which I did this. It was a S2 Vela. And I did this collage on a pick guard, because the pick guard was just like, it was empty real estate. So I did this whole collage thing, and they did a really great job with that. And we toured, Living Color. We had been touring. We toured with Aerosmith, right? We toured with Aerosmith with that guitar. That was really, really great.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, it was fun. I got to play Walk This Way.
That's fun.
With Joe. Yeah.
Is that how you met
Brad? Well, it was funny because we became acquainted with Brad Whitford because he was doing the Experience Hendrix tours.
Okay.
Yeah, and then at that point I was playing Parker. It was those are special, because we did special guest things with Joe Satriani and Steve Vai were part of those tours. And got to meet, Mr. Hubert Sumlin, and that was, played with Howlin' Wolf, and
right. Yeah. Absolutely.
And such an incredible person, incredible musician, and really, really special.
You've done the Experience Hendrix thing. I mean, off
We did
and
it.
on.
Yeah, we haven't done it for a while, but we did a few of those.
Yeah.
Those are fun.
Very, yeah. Really
Eric Johnson and Los Lobos and Indigenous, great players,
I see your soldier strap. It's beautiful.
Ah, yeah.
We're very tight with Jen, the creator of the soldier straps, a very good friend of ours.
Yeah,
she's been in this studio, as a matter of fact.
That's funny. I think I saw the first soldier straps were at the NAMM show. I said, "What the hell is that?" You know.
She's very, very creative and interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool lady.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then, last but not least, it's because it's so interesting to me. You have long relationships with other Reverend artists, which is one of the things that eventually sort of brought us together, because I got to think you kept seeing these in the hands of your friends.
Right.
But I mean, in particular, you recently did a gig with Michelle and Deggio-Cello.
Yes,
you guys are both in the New York City.
Well, in the
boroughs in the area.
Right. We're in, right. And I've known Michelle for years from back in the days, and then we're both have instruments, at the Smithsonian for the Afrofuturism exhibit, which is actually coming down. I mean, it's been there for 2 years now, and it's just about to end that exhibit. But I have the original Cult of Personality ESP is in a case, and then right next to it is her Reverend bass is in the case right next to the Cult guitar, and I was like, oh my God, So it's a cool thing.
That is we built 2 prototypes, and she got one and she loved it, and I had the other one, saved.
Yeah.
And she called about that, and I'm like, I have the other prototype, and you're welcome to it, because what an amazing thing to be asked to be a part of. And then Reeves, we
go back a long ways.
And it's funny to me too because of Steinberger and Parker, and now Reverend is a thing that you guys have in common.
Right.
And then you guys both have this sort of angular vision, no holds barred approach when it comes to playing guitar. Like a lot of people have rules and things that they sort of commit themselves to. And the thing that it's so cool to me that in my perception that you and RG have in common is that you guys know what those rules are, and then you shatter them anyway in your own particular way. And I always wonder what exactly is in the water on Staten Island.
Oh my God, it's so funny because I saw him with Tin Machine. Well, he had a band called the Adams Head, and then we did shows together early on with Living Color and them, and he was fantastic. I was like, this dude is out of his mind. And then saw him, with Tin Machine at Irving Plaza, and it was sick, And then when David Bowie became David Bowie again, I'd seen him with Gail Ann Dorsey on bass, Yeah, it was, and now he's in The Cure, and I have to see.
You have to see it.
I can't.
It's great.
Yeah,
because, he went into that with the idea that he was going to, obviously, you join a legacy band like that, you have to be respectful to the parts that came before you, and he was, and then they were like, be you, and it really is fantastic. It's a great show.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he was in New York for 3 days, didn't call me.
Hear that, Reeves? He's gigging this Doom Dogs. And they're coming. They head into the city every once in a while too, and I'll make sure he calls you.
But
we got it.
He did call. He was at a club, and I was out of town. I'm going to go check him next time we're in the same town together.
We'll get him one.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, and thank you for all of this. This is it's pretty wild.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty wild. If you would have told 20-year-old me that I'd be sitting here with you talking about my friend Reeves,
right,
and my friend Watt, 20-year-old me would have fallen right over. So
I know.
Yeah,
you gotta say hi.
It's a pleasure to have you on board.
You gotta say hi to Mike next time you see him.
We'll do.
It's been a while.
We see him a few times a year, so he's coming through. Have you checked out this MSSV, this band of his?
I need to check it out. Is it good?
Oh, it's real good. Yeah, you'd love it.
Yeah, Mike is just no nonsense. His vibe is just 100. He's the real deal.
That's for sure.
You know.
As are you. Thank you.